Welcome back, guys. So today we're going to be taking a look and talking about the Hyperkin Blaster HD. So this is a kit that Hyperkin put out that is supposed to allow you to play Duck Hunts, yes, Duck Hunt for the original NES on an LCD screen on a high-def television with a compatible console. For example, the retro USB AVS, a top-loader NES, specific other systems, some clone consoles. The compatibility is really going to vary. It's mostly going to work with a top loader if it does work. So today, this is kind of a difficult one for me because it's not so much a review, because in order to do a review, the product has to work. I have to be able to use it. And with this piece of crap, it's just not working for me. So today we're going to talk about that, a few of the reasons why I think it's not working for me, and also talk about another way that I went about doing the same exact thing as this, but with more compatibility to be able to play more games, because this is only for Duck Hunt. So the way it works is it comes with this cartridge adapter right here, little Hyperkin cartridge adapter, and it only works with this specific cartridge. You cannot use like the triple pack. It will not boot with this, if it does boot, mind you, because there's a few issues there. And you should see I do have a couple copies of this game. And there's some differences here that I want to talk about that can be part of an issue with this. So what you do is you take this damn thing and you plug it in, right? And one thing I want to point out is that the cartridge pins on this adapter are very short, so it does not make a good connection. This just flops around, and I think that could be part of a problem here. I'll explain a little more in a moment, because, you know, like I have this cartridge adapter to play NES games on a Famicom, right? And the pin connector is quite a bit longer, has a little bit nicer of a grip, and it holds on to this thing. Doesn't really flop around as much. They really should have designed that a little closer to something like this with, you know, a sturdier pin connection, a deeper pin connection, because with this, it's just too shallow. It's just way too shallow, and it does not make a good connection. And that's going to be one of the biggest issues, because with these cartridges, if you're familiar with NES games, there's some games that have a green stripe on the board that needs to make connection with the console. And Mario Duck Hunt Combo Cart is one of those. That it's kind of random, though, because some of these carts do not have a green stripe and some of them do. I'll show a close-up of that in a moment, but if it has the green stripe, it's going to have a lot of issues with this thing. It's not going to make a solid connection. If it doesn't have the green stripe and the pins go all the way to the bottom of the board, it's still going to have issues with this. So now, before anybody says anything, yeah, I tested it on this little LCD screen, but I've also tested it on my TV in my living room, on a TV that I have about 10 feet from here, different lighting scenarios, that kind of thing. I've changed it up. I've tried everything that you could possibly do. So the other thing that it comes with is this HD Zapper, this brand new Zapper that Hyperkin put out. It feels a bit nicer than their previous version that they did. It's got a little heft to it because it does have weights in it, but the trigger feels a lot better. It's a lot more solid than other knockoff Zappers. But there's an issue with this. It doesn't work half of the time, more than half of the time for me. For some people, it works a little better than it does for me, but there's a problem. Like I'll pull the trigger when I do have a setup where it's actually reading the cartridge and it won't register shots fired. But if I block the sensor, it'll register a shot fired. So I didn't know if this was defective or not, but I actually modified this to make it work. I no longer have the sensitivity switch on there. I may incorporate that back again, but there was a little switch there that just made it like more sensitive, I guess. And that just kind of didn't work for me anyway, so it's not a big deal that I don't have it in there. But trying to use this, it's just a damn joke. If you can actually get it to read, because this adapter, what it does is it injects some code into Duck Hunt that allows this to all work, or in theory, it's supposed to work, but it just doesn't. Doesn't for me, and it doesn't for a lot of other people that I've talked to and have, you know, seen online, you know, on social media and whatnot, kind of venting about this, that it's inconsistent. No matter how you set this up, Yeah, the light gun's going to be sensitive to light, so you're going to want to not have lights around you. And, you know, I did test it in plenty of different scenarios, and it just didn't work. Now, the one thing we can do is, instead of buying this junk, which it's a reasonable price for what it is, it's like $25, and the gun is not bad if it actually worked. But like I said, I had to modify mine. I actually took one of their earlier versions, the Tommy Zapper, which is Hyperkin. It's the same company. This one's really shitty. Like, the trigger's really bad compared to that one or an original Zapper. It's not that great of a gun. This goes for about $5 or $6, but it does work with LCD modded patched games. So that's why I wanted the sensor out of this, because for whatever reason, the way they had this set up just wasn't working for me. So it's kind of hard to demonstrate actually using this thing because it just doesn't want to work. But I can showcase using the modified gun and playing a game where it actually works. So let me go ahead and dim the lights and show that now. So we could play Barker Bill's Trick Shooting, which was one of my favorites back on the NES when I would play light gun games on a CRT. We could also play Duck Hunt, Hogan's Alley versus Duck Hunt, or Wild Gunman. So let me go ahead and just boot up Duck Hunt, because that's kind of what we wanted the Hyperkin thing to do. But if you have an EverDrive and you have the specific sensor from this gun or this gun that's like $6, you could take the internals and put it into that, the new Hyperkin HD Blaster, and it'll work. It's just the one thing that sucks is that this has a shorter cord than the new HD Blaster, so you may have to change the cords around if you want to get some length. Because one of the things with the gun, like, it's going to work on this little LCD, but you have to be fairly close. The smaller the screen, the closer you have to be to pop them birds. If you have a bigger screen, the further away you would go. So keep that in mind. I just want to demonstrate this real quick. We do have the gun plugged into player 2 port. On the retro USB AVS, you have to have the 4-score turned off to be able to use this, because otherwise it will not work. So let's go ahead and jump into that. So there we go. Let me move that. And show you that this actually works, but it doesn't work with the full Hyperkin kit. You gotta, I was kind of at an angle. There we go. This is the same exact thing that the Hyperkin cart does. It's using the same software, but it's, oh crap. It's just more reliable. It's more reliable this way. Like I said, with the smaller screen, you do have to be kind of close. There you go. A bigger screen, you could back out a little further. It's just easier for me to record this way to demonstrate this. But it just sucks for their kit, like, that's only compatible with one game and is going to have issues with that game. Occasionally, bitch, when I do get this to work with the Hyperkin adapter, the game, like, it'll reboot. It just won't work half of the time. It'll freeze. And there's nothing wrong with the cartridges that I have other than the one has a green stripe. These boot up just fine. I can play them on a CRT with an original Zapper just fine. But with this adapter and the short pins, I really think that's one of the biggest issues for it to not work. And that's unfortunate. I would definitely not waste the money on this. If you already have an EverDrive, just buy this cheap ass gun, maybe take the internals and incorporate it into a better gun or something, because that gun is really crappy, but it works. It works for this purpose without any kind of heavy modification. Like, you don't have to mod it at all. It will just work. Now, you can run into issues depending upon your TV, your lighting situation, that kind of thing. Boom. But I just wanted to point this stuff out because it's very disappointing to want to review a product that, yeah, there's some limitations. If it just worked, it only works for Duck Hunt. And it's kind of hard to recommend a product like that, but it's still neat. But it's not neat when it doesn't work. And I have to disassemble this thing and put in components from another gun just to make it work. To just, you know, and have to use an EverDrive. Like, that defeats the purpose of this kit. This kit is just, it's a joke, man. I've tried reaching out. I've tried talking to people. Nobody's got any answers for me. I'm just hearing from other people who are having a similar situation. But let's go ahead. Okay, so before we go, let me showcase another light gun game working with this method where you just patch them. I'll put the links in the description for where to get the patches if you want to do this. Let's do Barker Bill's trick shooting. Here we go. And I'll show you. I'll point over here. Like, it's not hitting those balloons. Like, you have to be pointed at them. So I would imagine eventually, like, you know, Hyper can rush this thing out. They didn't do no quality checks on this thing. It's really unfortunate, but I would imagine that they're going to release like updated versions or something, maybe one for each of the light gun games on the NES, possibly anyway, you know, double, triple, quadruple dipping into this to, you know, just buy this single cart adapter that injects this patch. So over time, if that's what they do, and that's just speculation, if they do it that way and it's like $25, $20 a kit, like you might as well just buy an EverDrive and just put the patched ROMs yourself instead of buying all that. Like I said, I don't know if that's what they're planning on doing, but you know, just to have the possibility of it working and be able to play Duck Hunt, that's kind of boo-boo-ness. This option, the way this works, is a hell of a lot better in my opinion. So there you guys go. The Hyperkin HD Blaster, the Hyper Blaster HD, works with Duck Hunt, but I had to modify mine because it doesn't work at all. This doesn't work for me 99.9% of the time, and it was very difficult to be able to even show any of that to you guys. I've just had nonstop issues with it, but this is the other solution to that. Links will be in the description, so really do appreciate you guys. And with that said, I will catch y'all next time. Peace out, bye-bye, and boom. Bye!